As I sit here and I light a cigar and I think about the fact that Iran, or is it Iran? Iran? Listen, I keep getting a lot of blowback about my pronunciation of that. But here's the thing. At the end of the day, they've already started their attack on the United States. And that I'll tell you about that later on in the video. So stay tuned for that. But I wanted to just talk about the achievement that was had with us as a deterrence for other countries, regardless if you agree or disagree with the strike that we made on Saturday a few days ago on Iran's program, whether it's the nuclear program or a bunch of empty warehouses. We'll get to that here in a second as well. Think about what it means to other countries. We had B-2 bombers take off, all flying west as a deterrent. Some of them broke off and began to fly east, flying 7,000 miles in total. Mission that took a little bit less than 40 hours, multiple aircrafts involved, multiple personnel, completely undetected by the enemy, no scrambling of jets by the enemy, hitting a target the size of a football field, and then successfully getting back to their base in Missouri. That has to be a deterrence to any country that has to watch and see our capabilities in the United States of America. I commend the Air Force, the Navy, whoever else participated in this, all our troops. I don't know. We had some Marines and Guardians sprinkled in there as well. Whoever participated in that mission, you definitely showed off the capability of the United States of America. And that is what I am talking about. June 17th, we had the President of the United States making some statements. And before we made that strike, now, before we get to that, one thing I want to talk about is, was that strike the beginning of a long game, or was it mission accomplished? The statement that the president came out with, and he was, backed up by the Secretary of State and the Vice President and the SecDef, seemed to be more like a mission accomplished, but it also could be the beginning of a long game, because one thing you guys got to remember in war, the enemy gets a vote as well. But before we did our strike, this is some of the language the president was using. We know exactly where the so-called supreme leader is hiding. He is an easy target, but is safe there. We are not going to take him out, at least not for now. But we don't want missiles shot at civilians or American soldiers. Our patience is wearing thin. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Hey, I want you to think about this. The Monday before the strike, the president was telling Israel quietly, don't do it. The day before the strike, publicly telling Israel, don't do it. Israel did the strike. The Secretary of State got out there, Marco Rubio, and he distanced the United States, saying, hey, Israel did this on their own. You bet not come after American troops, Iran. It would be detrimental to your health. And then literally the next day, the president started using this type of language. We co-opting it for everybody. And hey, it is what it is. If you see winners and you want to be a part of that, sometimes use that type of language. But it did kind of give off a mission accomplished type vibe as we came out and we started to see exactly what we intended to do. We decided to drop bunker busting bombs, GBU 57 massive ordnance penetrators. And the thing is we dropped 14 of these all together, 12 on the Fordo site, 2 on the Natsu. And then we hit them with a bunch of Tomahawk missiles on 2 of those sites. And the thing is that these things cost $3.2 million per bomb estimated. And that means that we dropped $45 million worth of ordnance on top of these nuclear sites, not to mention the fuel costs, the used costs, all that type of stuff when it comes to the crews, the manning, the escort aircrafts, all the stuff that we use, KC-135s, escort jets. This thing probably cost the government millions upon millions of dollars. And that's why I'm hoping this is not the beginning of a long fight and a long war, because the enemy does get a vote. One thing I wanted to point out to you guys is that we dropped this stuff, 30,000 pound bombs. And one thing I noticed is that Iran did not scramble any jets. I mean, maybe they didn't sense the actual birds coming into their airspace. I mean, they are B-2s. But before the B-2s dropped their ordnance, we hit them with Gen 5 fighters, Gen 4 and Gen 5 fighters. I don't know if they were F-22s, F-35s, F-18s, but we went in there and hit their surface to air missiles first. We went in there and we were softening the targets. Iran scrambled no jets. B-2s weren't even there yet. That is peculiar to me. That leads me to believe that this could be a long fight versus mission accomplished. I had to Google it because I couldn't figure out. During Operation Midnight Hammer, according to Reuters, Iran scrambled no jets whatsoever. Now, here's the thing. According to the former president of Russia, as well as the current president of Russia, Putin slams the attacks on Iran. The former president of Russia slams the attacks on Iran. He believes, Dmitry, the former president of Russia, believes that this is just going to streamline, fast track, make it easier for Iran to get themselves a nuclear weapon. I don't know if it's going to be similar to what was going on before North Korea got theirs and the Pakistani scientists were sneaking materials over to Pakistan and to Libya and stuff like that. They're not necessarily committing to helping out, but they are starting to speak up that type of language. That is a concern for me. And this is the lesson learned that could be taken away from Iran. Ukraine gave up their nuclear weapons. Russia attack them. North Korea developed a nuclear weapon before the U.S. went into Iraq. And guess what we did not do? We did not go into North Korea saying that they have WMD, because they definitely had it. We did go into Iraq saying that they may have WMD. We softened them up with attacks before we went in. It was a whole different use case. What do you think the lesson learned that Iran could get out of that situation? Give up our program and become like Ukraine, or fast track, be quiet for 6 months and possibly become an isolated state like North Korea. But that could be the case. I'm afraid that Iranians are not stupid. They may be mean people. Okay, they may be people who like to use terrorism as a weapon, but they're not stupid people. And they may correlate those two things all together. If we give up our stuff, that could happen. But I'm starting to believe that they're leaning more towards the North Korea route. This is a satellite photo from a commercial company that had satellites. This shows a line, just a ton of trucks that are waiting to go into the Fordo facility days before the strike. It is speculated that they moved their enriched uranium from this site somewhere else within their country. So did we strike an active nuclear facility, or did we strike an empty warehouse? That is a question that I have. Take a look at the photo. This satellite was taken at least 36 or 48 hours before we did our strike on Fordo with our B-2 bombers. Now, there are reports that we hit 3 nuclear sites, but there have been a lot of reports that there was a 4th nuclear site that is maybe twice as deep as Fordo and maybe 600 feet deep. That's a 50-story building flipped upside down and stuck into the ground. This facility has 4 entrances instead of 2 like Fordo, 18 feet wide, 20 feet high entrances. Experts estimate the depth of this could be much deeper than the Fordo facility. They made the estimation based on the amount of dirt and materials that would excavate it out of the mountain, and they're estimating that this could be a big site. Now, here's the thing. Why didn't we hit that 4th site? Is this a 4th site that still exists? Did we hit that site and Americans weren't told? Did we leave that site untouched so that we have it as a viable target? I don't hear a lot of people talking about it, but we knew about this as early as 2 or 3 years ago. Here's a little bit of information about that 4th site that talks about that before I give you my opinion on why we possibly didn't touch it. This is from I-24 News. This was posted over 2 years ago.
Team is now using mountainous terrain to its advantage.
Currently, they've been constructing an underground facility over the past 2 years or so, 2 maybe 3 years. And this facility is much deeper than other underground facilities that we know of, including Fordo and Parchin.
And with what's known about the facility in the Zagros Mountains, concern is growing.
Iran has stated that they would move their centrifuge assembly facilities to this underground facility, but the massive size of this facility does give us concern that they could conduct other operations such as a centrifuge cascade or enrichment program.
And that's the thing, is just like they have this facility that we know about. I mean, I literally looked it up on Google Maps. There are coordinates for it, longitude, latitude, all of that. It's near the Natsun site, but we don't have reports that we hit it. Now, I'm going to give you my opinion why we either did not hit it or we don't have reports that we hit it here in a second. But this is possibly bigger than the Fordo site. And Iran is doing nothing since that strike but rain down missiles on Israel and already starting to do proxy or type of attacks on America and other sites as well. We'll get to that here in a second. Here's more information about this site is because the U.S. believes, this is from Al Jazeera, we believe that U.S. bombs are unlikely to reach this new site. This is from a report from several years ago, May of 2023. This is a map of the mountain that we believe that this new site is near. It is near the Natsin site, but it's not quite in the same level where we actually hit it at. So the satellite photos were taken in April of 2023. And we believe that the AP shows that Iran buried into this mountain is called the Q Konlong Gazala, or we call it the Pickaxe Mountain. You guys can look this up on your own. The Pickaxe Mountain is something that absolutely exists, and they have documentation of them drilling or burrowing into this side of the mountain. Here's a little bit more information about exactly what they could be doing.
Iran has recently been building an even deeper, more fortified site known as Pickaxe Mountain Plant. It is built straight into a mountain just a few kilometers south of Natanz. While Fordo is believed to have 2 tunnel entrances, Pickaxe has at least 4, making it much harder to seal off by bombing. Its underground chambers are also believed to offer more floor space. Iran has barred the IAEA from inspecting the site, so most of what is known about Pickaxe comes from open source leaks and a fair amount of speculation. So to destroy Iran's nuclear program, Natanz, Fordo, and Pickaxe will have to be taken down, and only America can pull the trigger.
That is true that only we could pull the trigger, but this new site is possibly entirely too deep for us to hit. I am nervous that they've activated that site, that they've moved enriched uranium to this site, and there's a possibility that they can go quiet for 6 months and just streamline to get that 67% enriched uranium to 90%, which is weapons grade. And maybe they create a dirty bomb because they don't know how to figure out the triggering mechanism for a traditional ballistic missile payload delivered bomb, but maybe get enough to where they can lob one to a neighboring country via a dirty bomb. That's a big concern of mine. So if we don't have reports that that last site was hit, why do we think we didn't hit it or we don't have reports about it? Well, my first guess would be it's too deep, is that we don't want to fail. We are using these for the first time in war, and we really want to know, did we hit the Fordo site? I mean, we dropped 12. I don't know if they all went directly into the same hole, but we dropped 12 on the Fordo site, and maybe our goal is to ensure that we know that these bunker busters are actually effective and that they're working. And we really won't know that because right now we have satellite imagery. We need spies or someone to go in on the ground to actually verify with a drone or something like that, because you can't climb down there in a ladder because we blew it to smithereens. But we need to know how effective our bunker busters were. Maybe we didn't hit this new site because it's entirely out of our reach as it stands right now. But we also could use the bombing of those other 3 sites as a warning to Iran that you need to come to the table or we're going to take out that 4th site. But I am a little concerned about the fact that they may have moved everything to that 4th site. Another reason why we may have not hit that site, there could be foreign scientists there. There is a slim possibility that Chinese or Russian or even North Korean scientists exist at that site. We have intelligence that know that. And if we were to bomb it and kill a scientist from another country, we could draw a superpower into the war, such as Russia or China. And we don't want to do that. That could be a reason why they have to be putting these brainiac scientists somewhere, whether that's Iranian or scientists from other countries. And they don't want them out in the open because they don't want the possibility for assassination. And finally, U.S. intelligence may have shown that there's just nothing at that site. Maybe we have some type of Israeli or U.S. intelligence that says, why waste the bombs on something they're currently building, even though it's been well over 2 years? Why even waste the materials on that when we have 3 viable options as it stands right now? My question is, did they move it? The Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, couldn't answer the question whether or not they moved it already. And so now I'm wondering, was that mission accomplished, or was this the beginning of a super drawn out war? Iran has already started their counterattacks to us making that strike. They first started in the form of missiles on Israel. I showed you guys that in my last video. They've already started an attack on assets that are owned by the United States. So when this announcement was first made that we actually bombed Fordo and bombed those sites, I wanted to see the president's comments myself. So I went on over to Truth Social and I tried to pull it up, and I could not access the website. I tried on my cell phone. I tried to disconnect my computers from Wi-Fi. I tried on multiple devices and I couldn't do it. Well, apparently an Iranian aligned hackers claimed responsibility for an attack on President Trump's Truth Social platform. Lots of people all over Twitter, lots of people reported they were unable to access it. They did a DDoS attack, which is basically overwhelming the servers that hold your website or hold your servers, that where people cannot access it. It's called a distributed denial of service attack on his website. They did this literally after he made the announcement and a few hours after the US strikes actually occurred. That's a concern for me because that's kind of a tester. And if they're doing this to a site like Truth Social, which doesn't really have any viable consequences, because I don't really think the president particularly cares if his website is down for a couple of hours or a couple of minutes. But next, it can target U.S. organizations or people like me and you. People can DDoS your home internet like it's a thing. That's a thing that can happen, and you won't have access, especially if you're trying to use it for a particular reason like work, or if you're a live streamer or a content creator or whatever. They could actually do a DDoS attack on your stuff as well. So that's my biggest fear, is that they've already started this stuff. Also very cautious that I think Iran may start to speed run towards a nuclear weapon because of this attack. And this wouldn't be the first time in history where countries were speed running towards a nuclear weapon and other intelligence was unable to find that out. I was only 12 years old, but there was a report that India and Pakistan, both now nuclear powers, they themselves quietly sped run towards nuclear weapons, and U.S. intelligence had no clue about it at all. May 11th and May 13th, 1998, India conducted a total of 5 underground nuclear tests, breaking a 24 self-imposed moratorium on nuclear testing. We didn't know about it. Pakistan didn't know about it, and they are basically, they're always going at each other's throats. Pakistan responded. They did 5 tests of their own in late May of 1998 as well. So they both broke their own moratorium on nuclear testing, and we didn't know about it. Is this a viable thing that could happen with Iran as well? I would say yes, it is a possible thing that could go down as well. Is it a possibility that we have Iran speed running towards that? Yes. So number one, they're already starting to DDoS and cyber attacks. Number two, I think they could quietly go away and just develop the weapon. Number three is they're stepping up. We're already starting to get intelligence that Iran-backed militias are preparing to attack U.S. bases in Iraq and Syria. That doesn't affect me and you because we're not over there. Iraq and Syrian forces are trying to dissuade or convince these militias not to make those attacks. But we're starting to get stuff from even the U.S. State Department. The U.S. State Department and UK's equivalent has told U.S. citizens and UK citizens in Qatar to shelter in place. Imagine you had work to do in Qatar today. You work on a base, you work as a contractor, you just live in Qatar, and now you're being told to shelter in place. If there's a direct threat, they were not told that. This is directly from the U.S. State Department. The U.S. Embassy in Qatar suggested in a notice online, Americans do so out of an abundance of caution. And the UK warning is issuing the same response as the U.S. alert. Qatar is across the Persian Gulf from Iran. What reason are they being told to shelter in place? I'm unsure, but we're now starting to see a possible threat to troops in Iraq and Syria. There was estimated between 8,000 and 15,000 people living and working in Qatar. So now we have to think about what is that going on with there as well. That doesn't directly affect us, but it's still something I concern myself with. And Iran, their parliament voted to close the Strait of Hormuz. Now, here's the thing. They can't do that without the supreme leader's confirmation. He has to give them the good to go. But they also can't just close the Strait of Hormuz. That's not a thing. Now, if you look at this map I have on the screen, you see Oman is right there across from Iran. And every country does have nautical waters that belong to them. A lot of ships that pass through that strait, they stay as close to Oman as possible. So they're not in Iranian waters. A couple of reasons. One, you don't have to want to engage with Iranian warships or any of their naval assets if they just feel like picking a fight with you. Number two is In the 90s, Iran mined, they put mines, you know, the things you step on in war, but they also could put mines in water. They mined that strait. It actually affected one of our naval vessels as we were searching for those mines in the 90s. But these oil tankers are nervous that they are beginning to mine all over again. So when they say close the Strait of Hormuz, that is what they mean. They're not talking about pull a tanker out and just block the entire strait. That's not viable. What they probably mean by that is to drop mines throughout the strait to where oil tankers don't even want to go into the strait. And now we have to use assets from us, the Emiratis, Saudis may all have to come together to figure out where these mines are. Got to remember that over 20% of the world's oil, 21 million barrels of oil per day go through this strait. If they were to mine and close this strait, hello, $6 a gallon gas for me and you. I absolutely do not want that to happen. So we have all these different things going on. We went through, we made our strike. I'm not sure if we did a strike on all the facilities themselves. I don't know if just bombing is going to be enough. We had the vice president this weekend saying that we're not at war with Iran. We're at war with Iran's nuclear program. What does that mean, Mr. Vice President? I would like more elaboration with that, because if it means that we're at war with them, does it actually mean that we can't just bomb our way to take out their nuclear program? I don't know if it's that simple. And he also said that we don't want regime change. The Israelis were leaning towards not wanting regime change. Then the president came out with this statement just a few hours before I began to make this video, where he said it's not politically correct to use the term regime change, but if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be regime change? And then he said MEGA, whatever, you know, I don't know if that's the new acronym that they're coming up with. So if we're now starting to hint at regime change, even top-down regime change is difficult to do. It normally would be done with an uprising from the people. I don't know if there's an appetite for a regime change right now in Iran. Think about this. There are other countries that would be viable for getting rid of their current regime. Example, Russia. They've incurred over 1 million casualties in their war versus Ukraine. Do you see the Russian people getting out there in the street and saying Putin must go? No, you're not seeing that. What reason would the Iranians have to get in the streets and say to get rid of the Ayatollah, to get rid of the supreme leader? I'm not sure if they have a reason for that right now, but we're starting to hit at that type of language. When we start to see that type of language, that makes me concerned. The enemy gets a vote when it comes to war. We were only supposed to do a strike, but now we're starting to talk about regime change. There was a fourth site. I'm unsure if we actually struck. We're starting to see cyber attacks that are already being conducted. I'm pretty sure that more have occurred, but we have evidence of them attacking the president's Truth Social. And we're getting warnings in the Middle East from our State Department for people to shelter in place. A lot of this stuff, I don't have advice of exactly what you should be doing, because I've given that advice in my previous video, but I'm very concerned about the DDoS aspect and the cybersecurity aspect. Like I'm not trying to pull all my money out the bank or to stop doing stuff online, but I am concerned about things that go on around me, because water's delivered to my house through pipes, but the whole network is ran through the internet. That can be attacked. Electricity is delivered to my house through underground cables, but it's all ran through the internet. The way that they bring gas from to our neighborhood is through routes that are conveyed through the internet. The stuff that can be used for cybersecurity, cyber attacks is super duper concerning. That's my number one thing that I'm thinking about. Iran speed running towards a bomb is something that I'm thinking about, because they have the example with Ukraine versus North Korea. Which one do you think that they would do? The ball is in their court. The ball right now is in Iran's court, point blank, period. They get a vote in this, and we don't have any control over that. So what do you think is going to happen? Do you think they're going to speed run to 90% enriched uranium? Do you think that they're going to make a dirty bomb? Do you think they're going to continue these attacks? Do you think we're going to go for regime change? Do you think we hit the fourth site? I'm hitting you guys with a lot of questions because I don't know the answers to any of them, but I would love to know what your comments down below. If this is your first time stopping by, hit that subscribe button. I would love to have you a part of the battalion. If this is not your first time stopping by, well, thank you once again for watching me run my grape. For everyone else, we'll speak soon.